Fong is on the line with us, investigative reporter for The Nation and The Republic Report, republicreport.com, thenation.com. And Lee, welcome.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me.
It is always great having you on the program. You've been doing so amazing reporting on the generals who are informing us on television. Do I have that right?
That's right, Tom. In a story we posted last Friday, we took a look at some of the most prominent pundits who are calling for a military solution to the ISIS issue. Most of these folks that we reported on are former generals, and they're introduced when they talk about these issues in the media as only former generals or current think tank heads. What hasn't been disclosed or acknowledged when these folks have gone on the media is their current positions in the defense contracting world. Many of these individuals are highly paid board members, advisors, or employees of defense contractors that would benefit from many of the policies that these individuals are pushing.
And these are names like Anthony Zinni, for example?
That's right. Anthony Zinni, Jack Keane, Jim Mattis. These are former generals that have been quoted in the print media or have gone on television saying that we need to deploy thousands of American soldiers to the region, that we need to arm various militant groups or governments in that region, that we generally need to step up with a military response of bombing and supplying more weapons to the region.
Why does the media put these guys on without any disclosure of their agenda?
Well, that's a good question, Tom. You know, I did my story building on the really great reporting of the New York Times in 2008. The Nation had a story several years ago. Kevin Conner, the really fabulous researcher, a lot of folks have actually looked into this issue and shown that for years, going back to the Iraq War and maybe even before that, major media outlets have brought on former generals, military folks, and refused to disclose their military contracting ties. So this is not a new issue. This is an ongoing issue. The networks know about it, but they've refused to disclose or identify some of these potential conflicts of interest.
Yeah. What does this mean for policy in the United States? To what extent have they been successful in influencing policy?
Well, let's just talk about one of the folks we reported on, Jack Keane. He's a former general, former advisor to General Petraeus. He's the Fox News military analyst. He's been going on primetime television almost every night in the last week and fairly frequently in the last 2 months, talking about a robust military solution for a very complicated political and sectarian issue. And you know, he's a board member to General Dynamics. They make airplanes and tanks that are sold to Saudi Arabia and Iraq. He's a venture partner at a VC firm that invests in defense companies. He has his own consulting firm, and he's also an advisor to the company formerly known as Blackwater. So he has a lot of skin in the game, but he's going on television to a primetime audience. And remember, Fox News is much bigger than CNN or MSNBC. They have over 4 million primetime viewers. So he's talking to a large audience, and in many cases, he's the only military expert brought on to talk about these issues. So it's really a disservice to the viewer that they're only getting one point of view, and that point of view is severely conflicted.
There is, to the best of my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, there are no businesses that are highly profitable, particularly with government contracts, that could afford to throw $250,000 or $500,000 or $1 million a year at some former general to advocate peace, are there?
That's a great point, because, you look at some of the largest public policy debates in America, they're often determined by figuring out where you can line up money on either side. The climate change debate, at least in 2009, 2010, when there was a chance of a bill in Congress, Democrats relied on money from the renewable energy industry. There was money to push back against fossil fuel interests. But here, for these foreign policy debates, it's really a one-sided debate, because the civilians who could be killed in a bombing campaign, and some of these other stakeholders in this debate, they don't have a voice, they don't have a lobby, they don't have money to influence politics or public opinion. So in a money-driven system, folks who have the resources, in this case defense contractors, have the loudest voice.
it seems that the only tool available to us right now is basically to shame the media into some level of transparency. Do I have that right, or are there other remedies? Is this the sort of thing that an FCC regulation, like some variation on the old fairness doctrine, which is now long gone, or equal time? Is there any administrative or legislative solution for this, or is this purely something that we have to deal with in our corporate media monopolies?
I don't know, Tom. I don't know if there's a regulatory fix to this. Certainly, I think Americans deserve to hear from a variety of viewpoints. No one's saying that these generals should not go on TV at all. They should just at least disclose their conflicts of interest. But the larger problem of not having diversity of viewpoints, not having a pro-peace or a pro-diplomatic solution coming from a pundit or another expert, that's a big problem. And I don't think we have an easy fix to that.
Yeah. I mean, shouldn't there be such voices within the administration, for example? I mean, isn't that one of the major roles of the Department of State? And might they not be able to offer? Of course, then it looks like they're a house divided, I suppose. Well, do you know of any politicians who are taking this on?
Taking on the media aspect, no. I don't know any politicians who have reacted to this story or to the similar stories that have been reported in recent years. But I think as many more people pay attention to this issue, we might see some reaction on Capitol Hill. I'll have some follow-up stories in the coming weeks.
I mean, it used to be, Dennis Kucinich was a reliable voice for peace, although he was, largely marginalized by the media. But, it was like, okay, let's listen to our token, peacenik. Here's Dennis. Then it became Rand Paul for a short while, although now he's all in favor of killing everybody. After all, he wants to run for president as a Republican. Are there any, and some very, very sane voices, Barbara Lee, the only person to vote against the Iraq authorization, by and large not listened to. They're just, they don't, it's Sunday, it's Meet the Republicans. They don't get into these kind of shows and things.
No, that's right. If you listen to Democracy Now! Yesterday, they had folks on talking about different sides of this conflict. I haven't heard anywhere else in the corporate media talking about the role of Saudi Arabia in financing ISIS, right, and how do you involve the Kurds? Do the Syrian so-called moderate rebels even want to fight ISIS? Will they just take these weapons and then
they just cut a deal with ISIS day before yesterday, a non-aggression pact.
That's right, they did. One of the largest factions there. So, these issues aren't being discussed in the corporate media, and I don't know of any politician that's really taking up this charge. Thom Hartmann, who's retiring, made some interesting comments the other day, but again, he's retiring. He's on his way out.
Right, and it seems like that's the only time they can be honest, and even then, if they want to do an Eric Cantor and, get a job with an investment bank or a defense firm or a lobbyist that might have them as clients, they just keep their mouths shut, until after it's all over. I mean,
there are perverse incentives here.
Yeah. So once again, your report is published both in The Nation and Republic Report?
Only The Nation here, but I'll be doing some follow-up at Republic Report and The Nation.
Okay, so you can go over to thenation.com, and the title of the article is "Who's Paying the Pro-War Pundits?" And this is, genuinely a horrible commentary on the capture of our media and our government in large part, and public opinion certainly, by these companies that are basically in the business of weapons of death. It's amazing. Lee, you are one of the finest investigative reporters in this country, and you always bring amazing stories to us. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Take care.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Lee Fong, you can check out his work over at thenation.com. We'll be back.